Hello, welcome to this video, and this video is going to be called Why Nobody Wants to Listen to Your Music. There may be some watching this video where people do want to listen to your music, so you don't have to watch it if you don't want, but if you're the type of person who sits there wondering, why does nobody want to listen to my music that I make, then this is the video for you. Last week on Sunday I always do a philosophy based video where I don't just talk about prog or jazz, I go off on philosophical tangents, and last week I did a video called Advice for Young Musicians, and I had a lot of messages about that, personal emails of people saying, oh, can you help me? And I thought, well, yeah, I do want to help you. And I also had a lot of comments from people who weren't young that are still making music. Now, I've just gone up the shop, not feeling great today. I've head's full of cold, I don't feel well at all. The great Carla Bley has died yesterday, so I got up this morning and got through that video. I really wanted to do it even though I didn't feel well, and I thought I'll treat myself to some biscuits, so I went up the shop, and as I was walking up the shop I started to think about these messages that I've been getting from people and how could I help them, and I thought let's try and boil it down to the real question, right? The real question that they're asking, because they'll ring up, no, they won't ring up because it's not the 1980s, they'll email me and they'll say, hi Andy, I'm a great musician, I really liked your video, I you know, you seem to have some good advice, blah blah blah. Could you help me and advise me in, you know, doing what? And I thought, what is it that they want? Fundamentally, they want an audience. They want people to listen to their music. That's what they want. And people will discuss and argue around that. But fundamentally, if you think about it, that's what you want. Okay? Now, so on this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through some ideas that might get you to see this straight, because I think what happens is people romanticize music and music making, and they come to it with a whole bunch of assumptions which have been inflicted on them by culture. And one of the main problems with trying to become a creative anything is we tend to suffer for a thing called the Cinderella theory. Now, the Cinderella theory is that you or me, we're just innately brilliant. We have this innate, you know, talent that should be exposed to the world. And at the same time, we believe the opposite, that we're not any good and we're rubbish. And that creates a cognitive dissonance, because you want to be able to get your stuff out there and you want an audience, but you've also got a voice saying, yeah, but why? I'm rubbish, you know. So if you think you're rubbish, why do you want to get your stuff out there, right? Why? And there is, we now delve into an area of psychology in terms of creativity which is so poisonous and deadly that I might just shelve that. But so we start with this idea of the Cinderella theory, you know. So you've got this budding talent, and if you could get your stuff out there, you will be discovered, you know. The Prince Charming or the fairy godmother will come along and they'll wave their magic wand, and other people will come along and make you successful by giving you, you know, your pumpkin carriage to go in and your glass slippers and all the stuff that you need to make it, because you know that's why you don't make it. I can't make it because I haven't got all these fancy things that the proper people have. And in doing this, people then adopt this sort of superstitious, or it's almost superstitious approach to music making, where they think that if they then adopt the trappings of the pumpkin carriage and the golden slippers, in other words, if they act like they are a famous musician and do all the things that famous musicians do, it'll somehow fool everybody out there that they're a famous musician. And that's, you see this all the time, you know. So people want to write songs, they want to record those songs in a big studio, but they can't do that, so they have to do it in their bedroom, so they kid everybody that they've sort of done it in a real studio with real musicians when it's all not real and it's all fake. Then they'll, you know, they'll want to make an album, because of course, you know, an album is what everybody does, you know. There's no audience to listen to this album, but they'll put an album out there, you know, and then after much work, if they can actually organise themselves, because the vast majority of musicians who want to get their stuff out there can't even get past the fact of doing a recording and getting it online for people to listen to, but they want to make an album. right? With all the things that is required to make an album in terms of, album artwork and concept and the name of the band and what it's about, and then how you're going to distribute it, how you're going to create that's all going to be done by somebody else, because as soon as I put my stuff out there, the fairy godmother of the music industry will notice me and they will wave their magic wand and make all that happen. And of course, then when they do this, when they struggle and manage to get something out there and put it up somewhere, they put on Spotify and they look and then nobody's listening, they get all depressed. And what it does is it chimes in with that belief that they had all along, that they were rubbish. I'm rubbish. I'm just a rubbish musician, and it's just proved everything, and they get all depressed, right? That is the pattern, and I'm sure if you've come and watching this video, you're sat there feeling all sorry for yourself, being all depressed, for the very reasons that I'm describing, right? So, that is the first thing. You're doing it wrong. This is not the way to approach it. And I'm not on about what you're doing, I'm on about the way you see it. You've got to change your attitude towards creative music making. It's not what you think. You are a subjective, possibly self-centered musician that thinks the world should revolve around you, but doesn't. And you're getting very annoyed because it doesn't. And on the other side, you've got this horrible insecurity that you're no good, which just thinks you're a speck in the ocean of creativity and nobody's really interested. Those are the two things you're trying to balance. You know where that's going to end up with? It's going to end up with mental illness, right? So we've got to change it, okay? We've got to change it, all right? A much better attitude towards creating music and getting your music out there. Before I talk about getting people to listen to it, which I am going to do on this video, but the first thing is to see your music making is as something essential, so you need to do it, all right? You don't necessarily need an audience to do that. You just need to be able to make your music. I think when you make music, somebody does need to be at the other end listening to it, because it's a very depressing thing to do. But you don't need a huge audience, but you might need an audience. Someone who's making music for 10 really keen people could probably be quite happy. But how would they sustain their creativity? So this is the next thing. Your job is not only to make music. If you're a creative person, a creative musician, your job is to make music. The next thing is to work out how to sustain your music making. That's the next thing, right? How are you going to get it so you can keep making music for the rest of your life? When you're on your deathbed and you look back and you spent a whole lifetime creating all this wonderful body of music, whether anybody listened to it or not, that will be a life well spent, believe me. And I could talk about why I think it is, but I'm not going to do it here because we're going to shelve that and move on, because I'm trying to give you the real juice that'll help you. But if you want me to go into any of these things, tell me and I will. So the next thing on the list is, so now you've decided you're going to make music, right? Doesn't matter whether it's good or bad, you as a person have to make music. That's a much better way of seeing it than seeing yourself as this innate genius and at the same time this absolutely terrible musician, because that's going to create all this cognitive dissonance. You need to create music, right? That's the thing. Doesn't matter about what's happening out there. That's something you do. Other people might need to go for a run in the forest, other people might need to jump out of an aeroplane. They do it for themselves. We make and create music for ourselves. We have a response of the world and we have to act on that response. If we don't act on the response, then all the mental health will start to come in. So many people have approached me with anxiety and depression as musicians, and I've said to them, this has been my big message to everybody: if you want to get your mental health sorted out and you're a creative person, you need to make music. That is the cure. And if you're coming to this and you don't know how to get this going, you feel frustrated, then you may find that the fact that you're not able to go around the circle of creativity, because I see it's like a corkscrew going through your life, and you need to go round this process to keep everything in balance. And once everything's in balance, you will not be suffering from all the stuff like this. Right, so where have we got up to? So let's keep reminding you, so really drill it into your head. Right, change why you're doing it. You're doing it because you have to do it. You need to work out a way of sustaining you doing it, right? That may require an audience, it may not, but you need to be able to sustain your creative music making, right? That's the second thing, right? The third thing is, right, and here we have to face another thing. This is why everyone skirts around the subject. Your stuff might not be very good. It might be rubbish, and that's why no one's listening to it. And this is the thing, when we get into that's the next chapter, right? When I start to say why no one's listening to the music, the first point is because it might just be rubbish, right? If you are a creative person that needs to make music, right, and you have to find a way of sustaining your music making, which means you're going to have to keep going, you're going to have to keep putting stuff out there, right? The way that you will get your stuff good is not by going to a college and being told it by somebody else, or conforming to a genre that you think's right, or trying to be extremely competent. I'm going to get into all this in a minute. You will get good by having feedback, right? And that feedback isn't necessarily talking to people, but you will have feedback from the world. It might be yourself. You will have feedback from the world, and you will adjust, almost subconsciously adjust what you're doing. In other words, my answer for this one is you have to keep going and learn how to make good music. You may have talent, you may be a creative person, but you're going to have to learn how to make creative stuff, and it takes a long time to do it. So if you keep giving up at the start because you think, right, everyone should be able to see my genius, but I'm actually terrible, and if I can only just get my stuff out there, then the fairy godmother. If you are thinking that the world's like that, that is your problem, right? You've got to start releasing stuff. You've got to go around the circle of creativity. This is the answer, right? It's the first thing is you're going to make music. It's going to be the best you can do at that time. You're going to get it out there. You're going to sit back. You're going to see how that affects the world around you. It'll probably have no effect at all. And you'll go, oh God, that's interesting. I've had no effect at all. That's where you should be coming from. But if there is a glimmer of something there, then that glimmer you'll be able to see, you know, because of course, you know, you'll have your immediate family, you know, your uncle so-and-so might listen to it, and you will be able to see that if you're doing stuff, you'll start to see the stuff that they like, right? Now, there's going to be a whole bunch of other snobby, arty, elitist people saying, a creative musician shouldn't be doing, you know, what people like, they should just be expressing themselves. This is absolute nonsense. Just ignore anybody who thinks that, right? Artists make stuff, they respond to aesthetically to the world, and they put it out there to communicate to people, right? Yeah, I don't think you have to have sold millions of records to be justified as a creative artist, but you have to have some sort of effect on the world around you, right? You have to have some sort of effect, and you have to know how to measure that effect. So let's move on to the meat and potatoes of this video. Why is nobody listening to your music, right? Here's some of the reasons why. Number one, because your music's rubbish. There we go. Hit right below the belt with the first one. Now, why is your music rubbish? Now, I'm going to try and... I don't know what it is. It might be that you are truly awful and your stuff's out of tune and out of key and scratchy and horrible and sounds terrible and nobody in the whole world likes it. Well, if you like it and you want to get that stuff out there, great, you know, because what is the goal of your music? You know, I would really enjoy making the worst album in the world. I could have that as a little creative project, but I would have to sell that to the audience. I'm able to be able to bring an audience going, Andy's made this album, and it's called The Worst Album in the World. You got to check it out, right? But then it would have to be funny. But what if I took the funny part out of it? So it's not even funny, it's just dull and boring and tedious, right? Then what is the point in that? But maybe I'm making an artistic statement. So you have to be clear on your artistic intention before you start making it. If you want to shock people, then your measurement is whether you do shock people. If you want to bore people out of their minds, right? Well, that's one of the easiest things you could ever achieve. But it's an interesting artistic intention. When I'm making music, I know that I am manipulating that audience. That's how I see it. I can make them laugh, I can get them excited, I can try and frighten them, and I can bore them, or I can take music to a point where they can't follow it anymore. And I find that artistically quite interesting. But to be able to do that, your audience has got to go with you. So we come back to this thing of how do you create an audience? So it's not as simple as you think right now. As I just said, the worst thing you could possibly do is bore the audience, right? Now, if this doesn't go for everybody, like I said, you might be making stuff that sounds absolutely awful, but I don't believe most musicians do, because most musicians are obsessed with being competent, right? They want to get the mix right. They want to get their playing right. Oh, can I do my bass line again? Because they come in the bit, not too sure, but they come in and feel the notes. If I can just, their ego's so wound into this thing. So, I don't believe that people who put their music out there are incompetent. I think they know what they're doing. And most music that people put out there sounds okay, right? So why isn't nobody listening to it? I'll tell you why. Because the audience doesn't give a toss about that. They want to hear something interesting and compelling that they like, right? And you're not delivering it. You know why? Because you're trying to be competent. That's the next hurdle. You're trying to be competent, right? You don't want to take a risk. You listen to other pieces of music and you try and conform to that. You want your drums to sound like that. You want your guitar to sound like that. If you're making like a dance music track, you want it to sound like another dance music track. Everyone wants to seem skillful. They all want to seem competent. They want the audience to go, oh, I'm listening to this person. I've never heard them before, but I tell you, they're so competent. These people are so competent I'm listening to now. I really appreciate competency and I'm going to like it. Now, there are people out there that do appreciate music in terms of what they think is competent. These are the people that turn around and go, oh, John Bonham or Neil Peart is the greatest drummer that ever lived, Dave Gilmour, I think, is possibly the best guitarist that's ever lived, right? These people, the general public haven't got a clue about music, right, when it comes to competence. They don't know what's good and what's not good. You can tell that when you watch like X Factor and a singer comes out, right? On X Factor, they don't bring a singer out and stick a music stand up and get them to sight sing through some horrendous track that is like non-diatonic with all sorts of weird interval jumps, right? Hitting massively high note and massively low notes while interpreting, a lyrical subject matter that's really complex and dense. That would be a test of a great singer. Now, what they have is somebody who comes out that look good, that hits a few high notes, and then everyone goes, oh, is everything good? You see, as soon as they open their mouths on X Factor and the note comes out and it's not out of tune, they go, oh my God, it's a singer, and they can sing in tune. Oh, everybody clap, and I sit there going, what are they? These are singers, aren't they? It's like when I get someone around to fix a light switch in my house, they're called an electrician. So I hire an electrician, they come in, they say, I'm an electrician. And then when they start wiring it up and they do it well, I do not go in there and go, oh my God, you fixed I can't believe you can fix the light switch, How can you? Well, I'm an electrician. And anybody that goes on X Factor calls themselves a singer. If they're calling themselves a singer, the prerequisite is when you open your mouth and sing, it sounds okay. That is the prerequisite. But the audience has been they're so stupid, right? I'm hoping that there's no, non-musicians watching, that none of my normal listeners are watching. I hope they're all musicians, because I can tell you this. They're really stupid and dumb. Right, that's the first thing you've got to get your head round. Right, they haven't got an idea about competence at all. They don't listen to these things. The mastering of this is a little bit hard, and I think they could have cut 80 hertz off that bass drum. It's a little bit boomy, and they're not like this. They just listen to it and they respond to it. Right, so that's the next thing. You being obsessed with your competence is not going to make any difference. Right, that's not what people like. Now, the way I teach this, and musicians, this is a little bit of advice. You can go and do this if you want. There is a website called submitithub.com. And it's a place where unsuccessful musicians can submit their music, and then influencers might take that and blog about it, and you have to pay to do this, So it's a brilliant example of how the modern music industry works. But also in there, you can earn credits by critiquing other unsuccessful musicians. So what I tend to do is I sit my students down, and they're a bunch of unsuccessful musicians, and I submit it up, and I say, what style of music like? They go, I like metal. I like metal. Right? Of course they like metal. There's a billion metal bands out there all competing for what? Right? And that's another thing. Right? We'll get on. There's so much here. There's so many mistakes people make anyway. So we put metal in, and I put the first track up, and what comes up is this really well produced, completely competent track, and my students sit there and go, oh God, it sounds like so-and-so. Oh God, it's boring, isn't it? Put the next one on, and put the next one, and again we have the most generic metal track you've ever heard. Sounds like another band. Oh, it sounds like so. And 4 or 5 bands, and I go, what is the big mistake everybody makes? And they go, it's just boring. It's boring. It's samey. You've heard it all before. People have an expectation. It lives up to that expectation, right? It's different when you have got an audience. If you've got an audience who's trying to be commercial, right? You've got to try and reach to that audience. But when you're nobody, a lot of it is like sort of going, hey me everybody, it's me, hello, it's me, right? And what you've got is a load of people going, here's my new track, I'm really cool and competent. And the next one, here's my new track, I'm really cool and competent. Next one, here's my new... That's what everybody's doing right across the industry. You've got to stick out. And how are you going to stick out? By doing something idiosyncratic or weird, or even maybe questioning the genre you're in. Because there's, you know, all kids, it's like pop punk. You know, I've taught 1 million kids. And... they all want to play pop punk. So there's a massive amount of pop punk bands. Nobody's interested in hearing that. There is too much of it. And then you go, well, I love pop punk. So what can I do, Andy? And I go, well, what else do you like? Well, I really like, you know, I'm a massive fan of Kenny Rogers. But can you do sort of countrified pop punk? And you pull, and then, you know, look at what you like, what you truly like. And if you just like one thing, you're doomed anyway. If you're that sort of, you know, completely blinkered, you know, musician that only likes one style of music, then it might be worth just dropping that and go and listen to some other music, right? Be interesting, be compelling, do something people haven't heard before, grab them, you know. And then a lot of the production, I think, when you got a new artist, is about trying to grab the audience in the first few seconds, right? Because this is the next thing you need to understand. When somebody likes an artist, so say I'm a massive Madonna fan. I do quite like Madonna. I think Like a Prayer is a sublime pop song. But say I'm a Madonna fan, right? I'm a massive Madonna fan, okay? And she brings a new album. I'm going to buy that album and listen to it. Now, say Madonna brings out a really crap album. I'm still going to listen to it. And when I listen to it, I'm going to try and like it. In other words, when I put that album on, I am going to perceive that in a very specific way. I'm going to listen to it. The sound's going to come into my ears. And I am consciously and subconsciously going to send it to the pleasure centres. It's Madonna's new album. Let's put it on. Let's send it to my pleasure centres. And then you start sending it to pleasure centres. And the pleasure centre goes, come on, let's extract some of this lovely pleasure from Madonna. And if it's a crap album, it's sort of going, I'm not getting so much pleasure. And then you must get pleasure from this new Madonna album because it's like, you're a fan. You've got to support us. So when people like something, they've bought into it and they send it to the pleasure centres. They see as something that will instill pleasure. You understand that's what human beings are. We search for pleasure, right? And we suppress threats. Where's the threats coming on? I want the pleasure, but where's the threats? This is what human beings are fundamentally. This is how you go through life. Where's the pleasure? Where's the threats? They go, oh my God, I forgot to look for the pleasure. I'm looking for the pleasure too much. Where's the threats? That's how you go through life. So somebody comes along and they go, here's a new piece of music. And you go, I don't want to listen to that. It could be a threat. It could be something that changes who I am. It might change my opinion. I don't like my opinion change. It might change what I like. I like what I like, and then that's it. Kids aren't like that. Kids get to 12, 11, 12, and suddenly they get this music and they go, oh my God, this is the coolest thing in the world. Oh my God, that's the killer. Oh, I love this. And they just buy into what they like at 12 years old. And by the time they're 18, 19, 20, that is them. They're fixed. It ain't going to budge. Right? They ain't going to budge. And all the kids in the 1950s that loved Chuck Berry and Little Richard and Elvis, and all the kids that are coming up now and listen to whatever band that's been around for 5 minutes, that's why they're not getting into Elvis. They did back then, because whatever comes along then, if you find someone who's around about, how old would they be now? Someone who's probably about 80, an 80-year-old Elvis fan, right? They've held on to that for the rest of their lives. Those things are important, right? So when you go along, when you've created a new piece of music, or basically this is the sell you're trying to say. You're trying to do this. You're going to go, right, everybody in the world, I've made a new piece of music and I've put it up on Bandcamp and I've got it on Spotify. Right, go and listen to it now. You will really like it. And the whole world goes, not interested. Well, why would I want to do that? There's too much going on. There's too much to look at. I'm not even going to go there, right? If they do go there, if they go there, then they cannot help. They're not going to send it to the pleasure centres. They're going to put this thing on and they're going to go, is this a threat? And this comes out like this. If you play your track to someone, they will always listen to it like this. Ooh. It sounds a bit like Pink Floyd. Sounds like Pink Floyd. And what they're doing there, they might listen to it and go, Sounds like Kenny Rogers. In fact, it sort of sounds like a cross between Blink-182 and Kenny Rogers. I'm not too sure about that. Right, that's what you're going to get, because they're going to scan it for threat. And the way they scan it is by boxing it up and going, I know what this is, I know what this is. Now, if it doesn't conform to any of that, they're going to listen to it like this. What's this? Or I don't think you should be doing this. I don't think anyone will like this. I mean, this is really weird. That's what you're going to get. Right? That is what you're up against. That's what this video is about. That's what you were up against when you were a musician, is that wall of indifference where people just do not want to. It's like, do you know when if you sit down and someone goes, oh, I've got to tell you about the dream I had last night, it was really weird, and in time you go, oh, I don't want to hear about your dream. I don't want to hear about your dream. It's not real. It doesn't have any impact on me. Right? It doesn't have any impact on me. It's just a dream. I really don't want it. And they go, oh, so I was like, oh, it's really weird. I was on this boat and there's like these 3 elephants, and these 3 elephants are rowing the boat. You go, oh my God, how long is this going to go on for? And the funny thing is, they were rowing towards an island. Oh my God, this is so boring. And I looked on the island, and I tell you what, it's really weird. You were on the island. Oh, yeah, what? Well, I was on the island. Yeah. You were on the island. What was I doing on? You were completely naked. Right, and you got like a tennis racket, and you were pushing boiled eggs through it, and they were dropping into the mouth of Donald Trump, who was chomping them up. What do you think that means? Oh, I don't know. Was I in it? Was I? Yeah. Oh, I don't know. Feeding eggs through a tennis racket while naked on an island. Oh, I don't know. Now the thing is that's the other thing. Everybody's interested in themselves, and they put themselves into the artists they like. So when they listen to the artists they like, it's like they're listening to themselves. You're not a part of this. You know. So the point is that your music could be crap, but you could have done it for a long time, so now it's good, right? It's good, and it deserves to be listened to. If somebody did sit down and listen to it, you'd probably be the biggest artist in the world. There's that feeling of going, I've really put my heart and soul, I think this is good, but nobody's listening to it, right? Now the reason for that is because the music is not going to grab that person. It's not possible. Right, you put it out there and it's not possible. It's everything outside it that will grab it. Now I'm going to give you a list of things that will exist outside your music that you have to consider. Right, so let's start. You're on the internet. You've got your track. Right, you've put your track out there. It's on Bandcamp. Right, and you say, my new track's out there. And the whole world goes, oh, so-and-so's got a new track. I like it, but I won't listen to it. You know, what's the first thing they're seeing? They're not seeing the track. You see, our eyes, our eyes are like the king of senses, and our ears are like the magician of our senses. You know, our hearing is like a superhuman power that can go around corners. You know, hear through walls, hear behind you, and it's incredibly emotive. But and I often think the ears are they're a lot more about quality. You know, we interpret things with our eyes. We listen to what people say. You know, we listen for certain sounds. You know, if you think that even horrible sounds can be sort of nice to listen to, but our eyes they're detecting threat all the time. So the eyes are looking, right? So the first thing they see is they don't see the music. They see the visuals. The visuals are really important. Your artwork is so important. A good piece of artwork might just tip a few people and go, oh, that looks cool, and they might click on it, right? When they click on it and listen to it, you have to deliver whatever it is you're trying to say in about 4 seconds, right? So you have to understand that the button, and you've got to decide what's the button you're trying to push, and then you've got to really put it into those 4 seconds, right? I'm sorry. Do you need to make an album? No. If what I'm saying is right, no one wants to listen to an album of your stuff, you've got to make individual tracks. That's one of the things you're going to do. You're going to work on one track. Now, if you are having this thing of insecurity about what you're doing, and you're not able to even start the beginning of going around this circle to make yourself creatively an active person, then just work on one track. One piece of artwork. You're going to deal like that, and that is really good, and put everything into that track. Now, if I'm right about the visual, right, then you're going to have to get a video to go with that track, and that costs a ton of money. You know, you're gonna have to get all the musicians in the room, or yourself. You're gonna have to film something. You have to get to edit it, grade it. You know, do all these things that the video people have to do. It's massive files, and then you've got to try and put it out there. Now, I tell you something. When I've worked with young musicians, a lot of the time, the thing we try and do is we go basically like this. What songs have you got? We listen to the songs, and then we try and gauge which is the one that's going to grab people the most. Which one says the thing in the first 4 seconds? That type of thing. Once we've got that track, then we make sure it's produced well. I haven't spoken about this, but the song has to be produced well, and of course it has to sound great. But that's just competence. It's got to fulfill all that. But production is also about looking at the arrangement and trying to sell the chorus, to sell the introduction, and do all those things. Or if you're making avant-garde music, experimental music, it better sound avant-garde and experimental, you know, in those first few, and you better grab people. And everything has to grab people. If there's an audience for avant-garde music, then you've got to think, right, which one really sells it? And if you've got a track that's like a commercial pop song, that isn't the one to put up, is it? It's the one that sells what you want, right? So your production is not just about the sound, it's about rearranging it so that it will sell to an audience, right? So you've got that there, you've got the artwork, and the artwork is not just compelling and draws people in, but it also tells people what the music's going to be about for that few minute amount of adventurous people who are interested to listen to something new. They're very few and far between, but they are there. But the big thing is going to be your video. You need a video, right? And that's hard to do. But where I've been able to do this for people, usually they get the video up there, and on YouTube, a good video, even if you have no prior sort of audience, will generate 200, 300, 400, 500 views. I've got to be honest, when I've worked with bands and we've really got it right, the average viewership on a new video for their track is 5,000 views, right? That now is creating your audience. So, how do you create video? Well, you're going to have to either pay someone to do it or learn to do it yourself. And I suggest you learn to do it yourself. You know, you get iMovies, you'll get a basic video editor. And one of the things I do for all the music that I make is I go to a website called pixabay.com where you can get free stock footage. I grab a ton of stock footage which I think has something to do with the track. I edit that together and then I put the music on and I put it out on YouTube, you know. Today, if this video is going out when I think it's going to go out, I've just released a new movie. And this is a movie that accompanies my new album. And this is really following on from these ideas. I'm pushing this to an extreme now, right? You don't need a huge budget to make compelling video. You could, you know, you could just go and, I don't know, film your dog down the park. That is better than not having a video. You could go and take your dog for a walk. People like dogs, you know, just film your dog running around, then put your track over that. That is better, I promise you, than having no video, right? I could do a video on how to make compelling videos, right? Now, I'm a guy that the videos I make on the whole is one camera, there's no editing, and I basically sit and talk into the camera. And I've managed to create an audience doing that. Now, this is the next thing. I have an audience. I have an audience outside my music making, right? So people are watching this now. I'm not saying there's like millions of you, but there could well be a few hundred watching it, right? I can do this, which you lot can't do. Down in that link is a link to my Bandcamp. If you go to my Bandcamp, you will see around about 40 albums that I've made over the years. And if you like prog and jazz, and you like all this mad stuff that I talk about, go over there because there is bucket loads of it. And if you want to know, yes, I've watched Andy. I wonder what his music's actually like. I wonder if he can actually put his money where his mouth is. Well, there's a track on an album that's called Kunderbuffer, and it's called Money Where Your Mouth Is. Go and search it right now and see whether I can. Can you see what I just did then? I have an audience, a parallel. This is called influence, and this is how labels manage to get around that fact that nobody wants to actually listen to your stuff. So let's explore that. The best way is someone who is not you telling a potential audience member about you. So you know when someone comes up to you and they go, you're into Cardiacs, aren't you? Yeah, I really like Cardiacs. Yeah. You got to hear this new band. do I have to? It's really like the Cardiacs. Yeah. It's like, and people are saying that this is the new Cardiacs. Are they really? Oh yeah. And it's like everybody's saying it. Everybody who likes the Cardiacs, which is not very many bad people. It's a bad example. Everybody who likes the Cardiacs says this is the new Cardiacs. It's not like the Cardiacs, but it's like the Cardiacs. You know what I mean? Well, and everybody's saying it. Everybody's saying, oh yeah. So conformity. This is one of the ways you sell your records to people. Is you've got everyone else has to like it, right? And it happens in every single. This is the new sensation in jazz. No, it's not. It's just another jazz musician, but they got good marketing behind them, right? And that's other people telling, and people in influences telling you. It's like we're in a situation now. If Adele or Ed Sheeran or Post Malone goes on Twitter and goes, I've just checked this artist out, they're really brilliant, check them out, that person has now got a career. This is how important this is. So if you're sat there wondering why isn't that happening, it's because no one's doing that, okay? So that's one of the things you've got to do. You've got to get other people pushing your tracks for you, right? Now, one way to do that would be to collaborate with other people, for example. But I'm not going to go into that. I just want to alert you. I'm just telling you why nobody is listening to it. I didn't say I would give you every single answer to this, right? Now, the other thing is, think how radio works, because radio puts new music out there. Now, the way radio works is you put a record on. So, say, Bring Me the Horizon. This is an actual practical example of something we try to do with a band. Bring Me the Horizon have got a new single out. And the radio is going to be put out at a certain time. And they've told everybody all day. They said, at 6 o'clock we'll put Bring Me the Horizon's new single out. So all the Bring Me the Horizons fans are listening, right? Right. The radio will do this because they want people to listen to the radio. Okay? So you tune into the radio and Bring Me the Horizon comes out. Now, if you know that your band would be liked by an audience for Bring Me the Horizon, it would be really great when that audience just listened to the new Bring Me Horizon record. They go, oh, really, John, that's really good. I really love that. And then, what's this? It's just come out quite like that. It sounds a bit like Bring Me the Horizon, quite like that. Now, that means you've got to know generically who you are, right? Now, if when your track comes on, it sounds exactly like Bring Me Horizon, what are they going to say? And if you've got this competency obsession, you may find that you just sound exactly like it and people go, oh, it just sounds like a rubbish version of Bring Me the Horizon. So it's a really hard trick. You need to be in that genre, know where your audience is. But if there's a million Bring Me the Horizon bands, nobody's interested. You've got to sort of take that and run with it. You have to be creative, in other words. I really believe this, that novelty is a key to making it. Being in a genre is a key to making it, especially niche genres. If you're making, sort of psychedelic rockabilly, and that's a thing, but you've only got 200 people who like it, but they got a forum, you're probably going to be able to make your record and go, hi, ingratiate yourself into the forum. You can't do it straight away, but ingratiate yourself and start chatting. And then they'll go, I know this guy. And say, oh, well, I've got a new EP out of psychedelic rockabilly. Oh, let's check it out. I really like it. And then suddenly you've got that audience now. So the thing is, music is marketed, right, in two ways, through genre and popularity, which is conformity. Lots of people like it. So it's lots of people like it, and that's basically the chart-based marketing thing that the music industry does. And genre, which is basically when you go into the record shop, you go to Spotify and you click the style you like, right? That is how the music industry markets musicians, and you've got to be able to jump into that as well. Right, so you have to know what genre you are. You've got to get that, and then you've got to approach those radio stations, websites, forums, and all that type of stuff. And you need to ingratiate yourself with those. You can't just come steaming in there, right? But you need to ingratiate yourself with those, which shouldn't be hard because you like that music, right? If you do that, and because this gets on to the next thing, right? So say you've done all these things that I've said so far. You've gone around the circle of creativity, you've made some decent music which is compelling and good, but nobody likes it because they're not listening to it. You've got your artwork right, you've got your video. Your video's all in place. You sort of know what genre it's in, and you're doing something within that genre because you have utilised people, friends and producers, lecturers, all these different people. This is a lot of time what I'm doing is I'm listening to something going, well, and this is usually the test. If someone's got their style of music, they'll play me, say, 5 tracks, and I'll go, well, I really like that one, and I'm not into this style of music, but I do really like that one, and that's usually a test, right? So you've got that, and you're all primed, and then you've ingratiated yourself onto 4 or 5 forums or whatever, where people are discussing that style of music, and you've been saying, you know, the Kenny Rogers, Blink 182 crowd, you know, you've ingratiated themselves in the Kenny Rogers crowd, you've ingratiated yourselves into the Blink 182 crowd. And then once you've done that, you can go on and say, I've got a new EP out, and the people on there go, well, I sort of know that person because I know them online and I talk to them, and they've got a new, I might give it a listen. Oh, the artwork looks good, and there's a video. Oh, I'll get to see them perform, right, because the eyes are more important than the ears. So they click on it, and they're massive Kenny Rogers fans, and goes, I love this, it sounds like Kenny Rogers, but it's got a sort of punky Blink 182 sound, which I quite like. I do like Blink 182. I actually quite like this. I'm going to stick a like on this. Now, that person likes what you do. You have to grab that person and you have to go basically like this. You have to do this. Right, you like what I do. Come on, you're like the most important thing to me. You're not a fan, you're a friend, and we're all going to work together on this. And that person goes, oh my God, I've never known an artist with proper artwork and proper release, you know, that's competent, that wants to be my friend. I'm just a normal person. What can I do for you? I don't know. I'll send you to the next track, see if you like it. Oh, I can do that, yeah. And I'll share it for you. If you've got 10 people sharing it, right, and those 10 people can, because remember what I said earlier, someone else telling other people about you is better than you telling people. Those 10 people, if they all grab 10 people, you now have 100 people. Now, if you maintain that 100, that first audience you've got to grab and maintain, you know them, you've got them in your hand, right? You're talking to them, they're your first fans, just that 100 fans, right? And they buy into you now. You are making one track at a time, remember. So now you can get into a rhythm. You can go, here's the next track, video's dropping this day. And then you've got something on social network to come back, because social network is so important. New single coming out. Here's an interview with me about the new single. Here's some photos of me in the studio making the new single. Here's a video in the studios making the new single. Here's a new single on Spotify. Here's the video, right? All that's done, and they go, oh, great, like that. And then you start again. Once you've done that 10 times, that audience will have grown to 100 people, we hope. So now you have 100 people, you've followed all the rules. Now you put your album out. And those 100 people buy your album off Bandcamp for £5. You now have 500 quid. You could spend that on marketing. Right, but what you could spend it on is doing one gig, because I'm afraid when you're a creative musician, gigs, right, don't think, right, this is another, you know, big mistake. People, you know, oh, you know, we made an album, let's go out and gig. Nobody wants to see you, nobody wants to buy any tickets. You're going to be playing to nobody. Now, you could, right, get in a van and drive around playing to nobody, right? This is the way bands used to do it, playing to nobody, 5 people in a pub, 5 people in a pub, and eventually you would get an audience. But my suggestion is always been, once you're at that point, right, you do one gig of your album, you get everybody down there and they will come. Oh, do you know my mate's got a new album out? It's really quite good, actually. I heard it, you know. I didn't want to listen to it, but then everyone else was listening to it, so I better like it. When I listened to it, it's actually quite good. And they're doing a gig, do you want to come down? You'll get a big audience in there, and at that point, you need to photograph that gig, you need to film that gig, you need to get all the audience in there on a mailing list, you need to, like, video it. Now you can put, like, a live gig, you've got footage, you've got stuff to be going forward, and the momentum starts to get going, right? Now, after that, the next thing you would want to do is that you're going to do another gig somewhere. And that is another big step. So you pick somewhere, your friends aren't going to go there, and don't think you're going to lay a coach on and bring them all down. It's absolutely pointless. They're just going to get fed up with you. You're not going to be able to gig in that venue till next year. You've got a whole year, and your mates will come down, and it'll need to be a new album and something new, right? So just don't try and take all your friends around with you. It's absolutely pointless. The next thing is go to the next venue and push everything into that gig. You know, go to the local radio stations, put your posters up, do whatever you can. And even more important, if you could go on the bill with another band down there. So say you've been networking and you found another band that's doing similar stuff to you and they're down there, you can now swap gigs. This is the work you need to be done. Now, I'm coming up to 3/4 of an hour on this video, and I could keep going on this for hours and hours, you know, explaining how to try and get people to listen to music. I think I've done enough on this video to really try and get that across. So I think I've come to the end of it. I hope that was of some use to the musicians who watch this, about how you get your stuff out there. Now, some of you might go, this doesn't apply, I make electronic music. Well, if it's electronic music, you're not going to want to gig it. You'll want to like white label it. You'll want to get it out and have DJs playing it, if it's that sort of dance music type stuff. If it's avant-garde electronic music, then that needs to be allied to something else, right? If you're doing, say, instrumental music, avant-garde music, that is great. That is another video. But to give you a hint of what it is, it's like, you know, make a film. Find a filmmaker, make a film, drop your music, because that's how people appreciate that type of music, right? Or find an activity that can go with that music. Maybe it's meditation, or maybe your instrumental music is good for when you're studying, you know. Maybe it's perfect for people who like going whitewater rafting. I don't know, but find it, attach it to an activity, right? If you're making, you know, non-popular, non-vocal music, all right? Or fix it to a genre, and that's things like jazz and like jazz fusion, you know, that type of thing. I think I've done all right. You know, I knew there was a lot I wanted to get across. And when I went up to get my biscuits, I thought, I'm ready. I was starting to think about it, and I could feel that thing kicking in. And I thought, I've just got to jump in front of the camera and get these ideas down. And I think I've hit enough there on this video. I have a ton of these ideas, and if this helps, you know, like the video, put in the comments how it helps, right? If you do want more of this, right, you could email me and I will do an online lesson for you. Got a few people asking me to do that now. But if you become a Patreon, if there's enough patrons on there asking me to put this sort of content up, I will put it up on Patreon anyway, right? And you can contact me through Patreon. And on my Patreon, if you do the higher tier, I try and get to chat to those patrons once a month. I actually don't do it that much, to be honest, because there's so much going on, and I do try and just pack as much as I can in the main Patreon, but there's a way of getting to me. You don't understand how much I'm driven to try and help people to do this. I don't know why. I've always been like this. I really believe that creative musicians are a little bit cursed, and if they can find a way of sustaining themselves, I've gone right back to the beginning here. If you might not want to have a gig and 100 people and be generating money, you might just want maybe 20 people, a little club that like what you do. Now, one way to do this would be to get those creative musicians to sort of work with each other. This is an idea I've been having. It's almost like a new idea of a music college. You get 20 musicians and they all like avant-garde electronic music, ambient music, but something that's not that ambient. But they really love it. So you get 20 musicians to work together, and they all become each other's audience, right? They become fans of each other, and they know each other, and they work and they collaborate. And in doing that, you can actually create a little ecosystem, right? I have a friend, an old student of mine called, he's called Ben, and he has a YouTube on here called Worcester Terrariums, and he's far more successful than I am. And Ben, these terrariums are fascinating because they're a little bottle with their own little ecosystem world. Some of these terrariums, you can, you know, cork them up and leave them there for 20 years, right? And I wonder whether it's possible for musicians through the internet to meet each other and create this sort of musical terrarium. Oh my God, there's a wasp has just got caught in the web outside my studio. And the biggest, fattest spider, it's like an English garden spider. I'll show you. It's quite mind-blowing. This is the thing about life, isn't it? Oh, sorry about this, but this thing is right. So you see that there? Let's get the camera straight. Oh my God, sorry about this. I've got to show you this. I did do a video once where a massive big spider came out and I stopped it and started again. And I thought, they want to see this, don't they? Right, so let's zoom right in, see if we can get... Look at the size of that fat thing there. Look at it. Come on, focus on the fat spider camera. Focus. Focus. Oh! Now this is what YouTube's all about. There we go. Focus on the fat spider. Come on, camera, you can do it. Focus on the fat spider. It's just a big. Oh, I'm so sorry about this. Shall we try? I'll just disconnect the camera. We'll get right in there. Hopefully, I've got to get this fat spider on video. Look at this. Look how fat he is. Where's he gone? Oh, I'm zoomed right in, aren't I? This is absolute chaos. There he is. Let's get in a bit closer to him. He's still out of focus. You'd think a big fat bum like that, a big fat spider bun, that the camera... Oh, I'm going to give up on this. I'm so sorry. I tried to show you the fat spider and it didn't work. Where am I? Oh my God, I'm zoomed right in. Chaos. Chaos and order. That's the secret of everything. As a creative musician, if you can understand that, you need a bit of chaos, right? And life is all about pleasure and threat. And that poor little wasp that has now been cocooned by the spider. It's been cocooned up by the spider. I've got to show you this. Spider's had his thing now, look. Can you see? This is life and death going on here. Right outside my window. You see that big fat spot? Oh, it just will not focus on him, will it? Come on. Oh, I give up. That's it. I give up. Chaos.